Fuck.
I can't fucking do this anymore!
That was seriously fucked up.
So you agree?
Fuck yes! This was insane! I was not in control of that situation at all. Look at this! Look at my fucking hand! Look at this shit!
Why do you keep doing this to us?
I don't know. Maybe I hate myself. Maybe I think I deserve to die. I don't know. We need a vacation.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to this week's Golden Win Geek Out. I'm your host, Danny. Got my co-host, Ryan, with me.
Hi.
Alrighty, and we're here to talk about episode 20, the final mission from the boss.
Oh.
Now, okay, before we actually go into the discussion, I do want to apologize if I sound really weird tonight or something. Earlier this week, I was visiting my parents up in my home state of Ohio, and while I was there, it snowed, and I'm literally like Thursday when I was flying back home, I got hit with some pretty bad congestion, and it hasn't completely gone away, so I'm still battling it. And on top of that, this episode, which had me and Ryan screaming at the very end. So I apologize if my voice sounds really weird or anything tonight, but the show must go on.
It's like, no, seriously. First, Weather Report was coming after me. Now, Weather Report was going after you.
Oh, God. It's like, yeah. Oh, no, you sit your ass down, Game of Thrones. You ain't getting me yet.
Yeah. Yeah, really.
And only the people who have read Stone Ocean will get why I called him that. But I digress. Alright, so, on to the episode itself. And
oh, fuck me.
yeah, I mean, suffice it to say, a very Bruno-heavy episode, which I know makes me very happy, but, you know, of course it was going to be, considering what happened.
Yeah, it's like, oh no, it's like, yeah, on one hand, this is a Bruno-filled episode, but it's like, on the other hand, for people like you who are, like, massive Bruno fans, it's like, I could only imagine, it's like, it was rather hard to watch.
This was the episode that we've been dreading. Like, Bruno fans everywhere, it's like, we all knew it was coming, but it felt like it has come far too soon. So it's like, oh yes. So, well, suffice it to say, pretty much this was a beat-for-beat episode, you know, with, you know, more so, couple of additions, more so in Bruno's backstory. So, I mean, I guess we might as well just start with Bruno's backstory.
Oh, god damn it, that's right!
Backstory!
Bruno's backstory! Not now! Fuck!
No, but this was what happened in the manga too. It was
Oh,
like
I know, but it's like, god damn it!
When this happened.
Okay, well, that's just
Oh my
adorable.
God, child, you are too aggressive. Oh yeah, yep, this is where Bruno goes Assassin's Creed all up in here.
Sink!
It's like, oh!
You may have gotten my dad, but I'm still here! Me! Bruno!
It's like,
Bruno Bucciolati!
oh!
Oh! Oh! Fuck! Oh! Oh, shit!
Like, oh! Ezio Auditore, eat a dick! This is the true assassin here!
Oh, God. Oh. Okay, I call bullshit. They would go ahead and leave the gloriness that was Bruno, like, slicing through people's throats and stabbing them in the eye, but they still censored that one little flesh wound that the freaking Giorno guy when he was facing off against Babyface. What the fuck?
So, Bruno's backstory, you know, again, pretty much covers everything from the manga, but it does add or not so much really change things, but chooses how to present some things. So, like, for starters, we actually saw Bruno being happy with both of his parents, because in the manga, I mean, it literally starts with the parents and their divorce. And his mom is grilling him, saying, don't you want to go to a good school? Don't you want to live in the city? Don't you love your mom? Come with me. And Bruno chooses to stay with dad because he realized that, mom will be okay, but dad's not going to be okay. I'm not leaving him behind. So it's like, the whole point of that was, it showed Bruno's kindness. Like, even his mom realized that at such a young age that, Bruno has a very kind heart, and that will ultimately end up being his downfall. So that being said, so in the manga, what we do see is when Bruno's father is shot. That is told through the father's perspective in the manga. Like, we see he drives these people to the island. He sees, like, they've left their fishing rods behind. And he's like, oh, well, now these guys are just being careless. So just trying to be, the good host that he is, he goes to bring the fishing rods to these guys. And that's when he realizes and he sees, oh shit, this is a drug trade. And then he gets shot and he's taken to the hospital. The anime chooses to show this in Bruno's perspective instead. So it's like you see, okay, dad sails away, and then it's immediately cut to the hospital. And as Bruno's waiting for his dad to come out of surgery is when a police officer comes and actually tells him the details of what the hell happened. So same exact situation. They're just choosing to tell it in a different perspective. So it's like, what you call it? So that was different. Then we see Bruno pretty much going Assassin's Creed on the guys. And this is where he ultimately ends up joining up in Passione. And an interesting thing that they do at the end that they added is you got very quick glimpses of Bruno as a child. Because remember, guys, he was 12 years old when he joined. He's 20 now. So he's been in the gang for 8 years. So even as a child, they've been having him running missions, like, beating people down, overseeing illegal trades, all that kind of stuff. And we saw, like, very brief flashes of Bruno as a child actually working in Passione. And then we see, like, he's beating up some guy for some reason. I don't remember what. But he's beating up some guy, and then he sees in his pocket that he has bags of drugs. And that's when Bruno realizes that, oh shit, the freaking gang that I've sworn my life to, these are the guys that are responsible for spreading the drugs in the city, and these are the same drugs that ultimately got my father killed. So he's like, what the fuck is going on? Like, that pretty much broke him at this point. And, this is something like, I know I'm jumping way ahead, but way later on, Bruno will say that, when he meets Giorno, that's where, to him, meeting Giorno was like, I'm trying to remember how it was he worded it in the manga. I think he worded it as like, he gives me so much courage. I feel like I've been given new life when I met Giorno, because prior to that, my soul was dead. And, once you see the backstory, you understand why. So it's like, so lots of different things. So, mostly the same. They added a couple of things at the end. They changed the perspective, but overall, very good presentation, I would say.
But no, I strongly agree. It's like the way that they presented Bruno's backstory. I honestly completely forgot that a huge portion of Bruno's backstory was told through from Bruno's father's perspective. So here we are watching the initial episode, and you bring up, it's like, oh wait, this is different. We're watching it through Bruno's perspective. It's like, oh, okay, it's not, I guess in a way it's adding some new content in the manga that you wouldn't normally see in the manga or whatever, like
well, it puts it in a different context.
Yeah, exactly. In the anime, they put it in different context, which I guess technically it's adding new content compared to the manga in a matter of speaking, while not really taking a whole lot out of it. It's like, it's pretty much the same, yeah, just take it from a different angle. And it's like, I can appreciate that a different production actually, took the remainder of Bruno's story, like from Bruno's perspective in that case. I thought it was a very nice attention to detail.
And honestly, I think that's a very welcome change because it's like, between the two, I will say the David production presentation has far exceeded what Araki initially did in the manga. I definitely prefer the fact that they did this in Bruno's perspective as opposed to where they just kind of showed it for what it was. Because, I mean, yeah, when you're seeing, like, the cop where he's telling Bruno what's happened and you're literally seeing, like, little baby Bruno breaking down. I mean, it's like, I definitely prefer to see that. So, for me, that's very much a welcome change.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so I was like, yeah, and then, and another thing. So, just like with Narancia's mom, where she got a name drop, of course, it was after she died, and we saw it on her gravestone, but she got a name drop nonetheless. Well, Bruno's dad got the exact same treatment. So, we see on his dad's gravestone, Bruno's dad's name is Paulo.
Oh, yeah, that's right. It's like, I remember, like, we were initially watching the scene, like, in the anime, and it went by so fast, I didn't even catch a glimpse of the guy's name. But then you brought it to my attention, it's like, and I'm like, oh, shit, seriously, okay. Once again, adding more new content to the anime compared to the freaking manga. Because I don't recall seeing a name drop of any kind in the manga.
No, there wasn't. Neither of the parents were named in the manga. So it was like, okay, we got a name drop for the dad, nothing with the mom, but mom leaves the picture fairly quickly.
Yeah,
so
it's like she said she was gonna like visit Bruno and his dad, like once a month or whatever. But apparently it's like, yeah, like the moment she married to this other guy, like 2 years after the divorce. It's like, okay, well, it's not going to be a 1 month visit anymore. Now it's like, all right, we'll just visit mom like every Christmas or whatever.
Yeah, that's the only time he ever saw his mom was at Christmas time.
Yeah.
Now, actually, if you don't mind me asking, I don't know if this is too personal of a question for you, but considering that you came from a background where your parents divorced, would you say that they handled this, accurately or handled it well? Was it relatable? I mean, like, I don't know. I can't speak here because both my parents are still married, but, I'm just curious, what's your take on that?
Well,
or is that just, or is that too personal of a question?
Oh, no. It's not too personal or anything. I mean, it's like, okay, well, it's like the way that they handled, like, the divorce overall, it's like, okay, I was chosen to like to live with my mom like throughout the majority of my life, and every now and again I would visit my dad. So it's like that's probably the only big difference to be had, with how my mom and dad are compared to how Bruno's mother and father were, in the initial manga or anime. But it's like, I mean, in general, it's like the way different productions like handle the divorce or whatever, it seems pretty much tame. To me, it's what you would expect when it comes to like a married relationship gone wrong and the parents have to split up at one point. It's like the parents make the decision, to go their separate ways after years of marriage for whatever reason, and then it's like at one point or another, it's like either I can only imagine like the courts have to make the decision for like who gets custody of the child, or in other makeshift situations like what happened with Bruno's mother and father, they made the child himself make the decision, which honestly I believe I have seen like a other forms of media, like I think like TV shows or movies, like pull this kind of stuff off, you know, in the show itself or whatever, where it's like at one point or another, like one of the parents like tries to secretly like convince the child to be like, hey, it'd be, you know what, it would be a lot better if you live with me because your mother or your father is blah 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 blah, you know, and all that stuff. So I've seen stuff like that done, like handled, you know, when it comes to divorce and other forms of media. So it's like, yeah, from what I've been seeing here, it was handled pretty good. Like in for the concept of a divorce or whatever, it's like it was handled. It was pretty tame.
But suffice it to say, anything else that we need to talk about for Bruno's backstory?
Okay, now I think we're pretty much good with Bruno's backstory now, I think.
All right, so pretty much at this point, now there's really only one other thing really to talk about, and that is King Crimson's reveal.
Oh my god.
Oh god.
Oh shit! There he is!
Oh, that is so creepy!
Oh shit! Oh my god! Oh
no!
fuck!
Oh no! I'm not ready. I'm not ready. I'm not ready.
I don't think Bruno's ready for this.
Oh! I'm not ready now!
Oh no!
Oh no! No!
Oh god!
No!
Wait. Oh! Oh my god! Oh fuck!
Oh god! This is worse than Concoin! Oh god!
Ah! Oh
Cut off!
god!
Easy.
Well, I fucking called that.
Cut off! Easy compared to Bruno. Just
Oh my god!
I told you! I knew this was how this was gonna end!
Oh my god, Bruno, no!
Oh god! The worst possible cliffhanger! This is what we've been waiting for, you know, this is the this is Yoshikage Kira revealing Killer Queen, you know, where it was like halfway through we're introduced to that. Pretty much the same thing here. So, I guess before we actually go into detail, quick question. So, between the three main antagonist initial stand reveals, you know, the stand, the stand the world, the stand Killer Queen, and then the stand King Crimson. Ryan, who would you say out of those three has had the best reveal?
Oh.
Like, as far as what's been presented in the anime.
Oh, okay. Alright. Okay, I really need to think about this one. It's like so many tough questions around all of these Golden Wind Geekouts. Oh god. Okay. If I had to go ranging from like 3 to lowest to 1 to like the most impactful, I think number 3 for me would have to be Kira from Diamond is Unbreakable. Cause it's like, alright. Yeah, alright, that was, okay, Kira's stand reveal, you know, like near the end of like the first arc of Diamond is Unbreakable. It was creepy as hell. It got the point across, essentially, on what he is capable of as a stand user. But I don't know. For me, it was like just a one-hit wonder, and that was it. Like after that, it's like, oh, okay, all right. So this is what he can do. Okay, that's freaking badass. But it's like, I don't know. It wasn't as impactful as I wanted to be. And okay, I think that being said, I think number 2 would actually have to go to King Crimson, because it's like, here I am going on about how Kira's stand reveal or whatever, you know, was like creepy or whatever. It's like, no. That's okay. You want to see a creepy stand reveal? King Crimson takes the freaking cake in that department. Oh God, like so many thoughts are going through my mind. Like I feel like I'm on the verge of changing my mind because of what we just saw during this episode. But I'm gonna keep going
Yeah, that's
anyway.
fine.
But I mean, it's like, okay, yeah, okay, King Crimson's reveal, creepiest stand reveal, bar none, hands down. That was handled very well, and it's like. I mean, it's like Danny. It's like when we were watching the initial reveal and what happened to Bruno, or whatever. It's like we were just flipping out and crap because of how their productions handled this. I mean, it's like, my God, it's like it was one very impactful freaking reveal or whatever. But I don't know. Honestly, I would say it was quite the reveal, but I don't think it was like as strong as the reveal of Dio Stand the World, like near the end of part 3. If only because like throughout like the vast majority of part 3, we would end up like getting hints on what Dio Stand really is, or like what they've been wondering, like what is Dio's stand ability, so that the Stardust Crusaders can take him down. There was just so much anticipation throughout like both arcs until the very end, and only then near the end, when we finally see it in action after so long, it's like, I don't know. I think just from that alone, if it's like, yeah, all right, don't get me wrong. Kakyoin's death with Dio Stand the World, that was fucking butch compared to what happened to Bruno. I will give it that. But I don't know. Even with that, I think Dio's reveal of like his stand the world, like the reveal of the world or whatever, had the biggest impact just from like the huge amounts of anticipation alone. Because it's like, when you think about it from like an anime only like perspective or whatever, don't like unless if they played the games and got a good glimpse of what King Crimson is about or whatever, even if it's just for like, I don't know, like just like a 30-second animation of like his special attack or something, no one would have known what King Crimson was about. Like they had like. All we know is like, okay, the boss, like it just talks about they just mentioned the boss, nothing more, nothing less. No details about his stand ability, what this guy is capable of, nothing. Unlike how David Productions handled like Dio and his stand the world, and how there was like just so much build up and so much anticipation for what the world would be about.
Okay.
But yeah, it's like, yeah, that's just what I think, if we were to compare like all three of those villain stand user reveals.
Alrighty. So, I guess I'll throw in my 2 cents here. So, I completely agree with you on Killer Queen here. It's definitely, like, between the 3, I would put Killer Queen at the very bottom. And, I know a lot of people are probably going to be like, oh, that's just because of, what happened with Diamond is Unbreakable. Like, again, this is the first JoJo part that I'm watching simultaneously as it airs. So I didn't necessarily have the same impact as, everyone else did who was watching it for the first time. But apparently from what I've gathered, people were pissed about Killer Queen's reveal. And it's not because of what actually happened in the story so much as what happened to the animation. I believe I've mentioned before, and it should be pretty common knowledge now, that it's like when it came to the anime adaptations, Part 4 suffered very heavily when it came to consistent quality. Like, you would see really bad quality drops with, like, characters for certain shots, and believe it or not, probably the most infamous out of all of them was the initial reveal for Killer Queen. People were pissed to see, like, this is the reveal of the main villain's stand, and the quality of the animation was very piss poor. So, I'm sure for some people, for a lot of people, that no doubt had to have had some kind of an effect. Like, because it's like, again, this is what reveals the main villain, and you don't give it the proper justice. You don't give it the time and dedication that it deserved, and people were pissed off. And I can't blame them for that. I'd be pretty pissed off too, but
Yeah.
I can't speak for that because by the time I got to Diamond is Unbreakable, it had already aired and it was on Hulu. So I was just binge watching it at that point. So
it's like my friend Gigs and we were the ones who were initially like showing you like the first like arc or whatnot of Diamond is Unbreakable, and then I think at one point we did lean a little bit into the introduction of Killer Queen. But it's like, surprisingly enough, even after all the times that I initially watched Diamond is Unbreakable and like Killer Queen's reveal like simultaneously with like the release of like the anime or whatever, even I wasn't completely aware of like the quality in animation, especially with the reveal, until I saw like all of these posts like on the internet, like where they have like they do like side to side like comparisons from like the initial TV release over to the Blu-ray release.
Yeah,
where
and the
Blu-ray
difference
release, much like how they handle like a lot of stuff with like lack in quality with like I believe like the second arc of Stardust Crusaders, they did a lot of readjustments with many parts in Diamond is Unbreakable for the Blu-ray release.
Yeah, so the difference was night and day, and it's like, so it's like, I'm sure for a lot of people that had to have had some of an effect. But for me, I still would place Killer Queen at the bottom, if only just because when you, I guess, again, like, kind of piggybacking off of what you mentioned about the world and the build up to it. And in a way, I feel we got something very similar with King Crimson. Because not for nothing, in Diamond is Unbreakable, the first half of Diamond is Unbreakable is very much like a stand battle of the week kind of show. And it really wasn't until Kira came in was when the story went in a completely different direction. It became, more of a murder mystery. So when Kira was first introduced, and then we see, Killer Queen come in, like, it pretty much played out like, every other stand battle that took place prior to it. It just wasn't until you see him actually killing off one of your characters that's when it hits you, like, oh shit, this is the villain. This isn't just another minor antagonist that, the character's having a scuffle with. And it's like, I can certainly understand and appreciate the surprise for it, but at the same time, I do think, like, when you compare that to King Crimson and the world, like, because not for nothing, like, yes, this is the first time we're seeing King Crimson, but the boss has always had some kind of a presence from the very beginning. Dio the exact same way, and I think that's probably what sets them apart from Kira. So it's like, so kind of piggybacking off of what you mentioned there, like, because, yeah, that is a very good point to bring up, is the build-up, and how does the build-up, you have the build-up, is the payoff worth it? And I would say that for both King Crimson and the world, oh yes, it's very much paid off.
Oh,
yes. So that being said, as for me, which was more effective, the world or King Crimson? I'm actually going to have to go reverse with you on this one, Ryan. I think King Crimson kind of beats out the world here. And honestly, I think it's because when you take a look at the scene in general, like, you take a look at King Crimson and take a look at what was actually happening. It was very dark. It was very foreboding. And then you, like, just the image of King Crimson literally slinking out from the shadows behind him. And, he's just talking and explaining his ability before he strikes. I just think that was so much creepier and just thematically far more effective than it's like, oh, hey, I felt that way when Dio showed up. When Dio came in Stardust Crusaders, fuck yeah, that was great, because it was the exact same thing. But by the time, he reveals the world, it's like, oh, okay. Like, I don't know. For me, it was like, the world is a really cool stand, but I think Dio kind of overshadowed the world, for me anyway, because I'm a big Dio girl. So it's like, of course that's how it's gonna be.
Yeah, it's like, I am not going to deny how David Productions handled the reveal of King Crimson. Like, even though it's like, as of right now, I'm thinking, like, yeah, the reveal for King Crimson wasn't, like, as impactful as the reveal of Dio and the world or whatever. It's like, my God, it is so close to being number one in that case. Because it's like, oh, good God. Throughout this entire time, I still cannot, I literally cannot stop thinking about what the actual hell was going on from the moment Bruno and Trish entered the building to the moment we saw Killer Queen's creepy ass face.
Yeah. Well, and that's like, and that's another thing, like, look at like the stand designs, like, compare the world and to Killer Queen to King Crimson. Fuck, let's go even further than that. Let's compare them to, to Whitesnake from Part 6 and Dirty Deeds Done Dirt Cheap from Part 7. Part 8 is still unaccounted for. So, when you look at all of those main enemy stands, it's like, yeah, King Crimson is by far the most disturbing and unsettling looking out of all of them. I mean, it's a very, very creepy design. I mean, just the fact that, this is a stand that is like constantly like he's got like this constant like gritting his teeth look, like constantly angry. He's got the second face on his head. And it's very creepy,
and it's
very
tiny little
unsettling.
Green eyes with like the black pupils in the middle.
Yes, and it's like, I mean, hell, like you even saw this in this episode, like, King Crimson, and again, this kind of ties into the boss. If you notice, like, King Crimson rarely even puts his head down. Like, did you notice that, like, when King Crimson is first, talking to Bruno behind him, he was kind of like, he had his held up high and is looking down at Bruno.
Yeah.
The only time that King Crimson actually went down to Bruno's level was actually when he fucking cock-yoinked him in his beautiful man titties. Because it's like... Because seriously, it was like, and this is the thing, it's like, again... Let's look at the world with cock-yoin. When that happened, of course they played off of the whole time stop thing, so you didn't actually see the world punch through cock-yoin initially. So you just see cock-yoin standing there, and next thing you know, he just flies back. Like, it's all done through, like, quick edits and quick shots. You don't actually really see the punch or anything. Now compare that to King Crimson, where it's like, you are literally seeing his fist literally pushing itself right through Bruno's back and out through his chest. It was like, holy shit. Like, I gotta say, I was not expecting that. I was expecting where you see, like, you see, like, the look on Bruno's face, like, uh-oh, he's just been hit, and the camera's probably gonna, like, pan down or something, and you'll just see the fist is right there. I was not expecting to actually see the attack go through.
Oh, yeah, neither was I. It's like, yeah, literally, like, they literally animated the bulges in Bruno's body as King Crimson's fist is, like, just powering through his entire freaking body. And to add more salt to injury, is like, as Bruno is puking out blood is, like, just spraying out of the freaking hole in his chest. And it's like, yeah. Jesus. It's like, no, it's like, seriously. I mean, okay. All right, here's the thing. Even when we initially saw the reveal of the world, and we saw Kakuin, get the hole in his chest, like, through the magic of stop time, and we didn't see that from Dio's perspective. We saw it through, like, just quick editing and such. Even with that, and before they cut to the scene where they actually see Kakuin, getting taken out from Dio's perspective, I still felt the impact or whatever. But even then, Kakuin's death was freaking butch compared to what happened to Bruno. Like, bar none. It was that gruesome.
Yeah. So I guess so not only that, I guess let's try and talk a little bit about King Crimson's ability. So it's like, yes, he kind of tells you what's going on, but as I mentioned last week, King Crimson is notorious for confusing people with his ability, and from what I've gathered again from research, apparently a lot of the confusion stems from the initial translations for Vendoreo, because yes, if you were to read the manga translations from JoJo's Colored Adventure Team, which is how I read it, you're getting the up-to-date translations where it's up-to-date, it's correct, and, far more faithful to the original. Apparently, Part 5, it was initially fan-translated, but the translations were very amateur, very off. And, to the point where some people, I guess, who have actually read those old translations and then came back and read the new ones were shocked to see how even some characters came off very differently. Like, apparently Bruno was one of them. So it's like, I think this is why, for a while, Part 5 was kind of like the black sheep of the series. Like, a lot of people, when reading the fan translations, were like, oh my god, Part 5 sucks. But it's because they had really bad translations. And it really isn't until the past couple of years with proper translations that people are coming back to it and they're like, oh wow, this is actually pretty good. I can understand why Japan really likes this. And suffice it to say, I think the anime is doing it justice. But I think that's what also happened with King Crimson. Like, that, no one could really properly understand what the fuck King Crimson was doing from the initial translations, and I think that's probably what started that whole, it just works meme that happens. So, the whole idea behind King Crimson's ability, pretty much like Dio and Kira, we have a villain that fucks around with time. So, we've got Dio that can stop time, we've got Kira that can rewind time, and now we got King Crimson here that can flat out erase time. So what he does is, you see, King Crimson can look like a couple seconds ahead into the future on like somebody's actions, and he can kind of forecast it. He can see okay, this is what you're going to do. So armed with that knowledge, I am going to erase the time from point A to point B. Like when you look at Bruno with the pillar. Point A would be where Bruno decides to attack the pillar. Point B would be after he had attacked the pillar and went to inspect it, going, okay, wait a minute, where's the boss? King Crimson erases the time between point A and point B, and that's why you saw for a very, very brief moment there were two Brunos, and the Bruno from point A disappears, leaving the Bruno from point B, and that's what leaves him wide open for King Crimson to attack. That's more or less what his ability does. And admittedly, there are times where, not so much with this part. When Bruno gets hit and everything, that makes sense. I get that. But there's even parts, later on where it's, you just kind of look at it and you're like, wait, King Crimson can do this now? Or it's wait a minute, I thought the ability was this. Why is this happening now? It's and I think that stems also from the confusion. So I'm hoping, David Productions is going to be able to animate it, actually animating the time erasing bit and, make it, make it clear enough that people can understand, okay, this is what King Crimson is erasing, and thus that's why it acted as such.
Yeah, more or less. I mean, I would actually have to probably go back to the point of King Crimson's reveal or whatever, or see his ability in action, and just go back and rewatch that, just so you get a much clearer picture on how David Productions handled King Crimson's ability. But it's from what I could gather, it's Yeah, I think suffice to say, yeah, the way that they were able to explain King Crimson's ability, I think it's safe to say, like, definitely a much better job than how they handled it with the manga, and I think it's definitely more clear to look at, compared to, say, if you were to witness King Crimson's ability through All-Star Battle or Eyes of Heaven, for instance.
Okay. Alrighty, so then, okay, so I guess, we'll put a spoiler tag here. So, just out of curiosity, Ryan, like, do you actually notice the design of the boss? They still kept, they still kept it mostly in shadow, which is good.
Yeah.
We can't quite reveal the boss just yet. But did you notice his hair?
I think so.
Yeah, like because if you remember, Ryan, Diavolo, who is really the main, what many people say, that's the main villain. Diavolo's got the long flowing hair, but But then you've got Doppio. Doppio's hair is like pinned back or something, so it looks like he looks like his hair is shorter, but it's more so like it's pinned back. So I find it kind of interesting how when you actually, like, even though it's in the shadows, you can plainly see the boss's hair. It's not wild or anything. It's not long. It's pinned back. So even though Diavolo's clearly the one in control, this is Doppio's body that's out right now.
Huh. Yeah, it's like, if anything, I was taking... I guess for some reason, it's like, even though it was all, like, encased in shadow pretty much, it's like, I think I was taking more notice of, like, I was expecting to see, like, okay, this shadowy figure, to be, like, nothing in, like nothing but black. Like, kind of like if you were to play, I believe, like, Eyes of Heaven or All-Star Battle, like, play one of the alternate costumes, and he's nothing more than just, like, some generic male figure, like, engulfed in nothing but black shadow or whatever. No, I was taking more notice of how it was, like, it seemed like, yeah, he was wearing, like, some pink magenta suit with, like, a bow tie or something, and I'm just sitting here like, okay, that's a different attention to detail I wasn't expecting.
Yeah, I mean, it's not the same. I mean, that is not the outfit that Doppio wears. Make no mistake about it. But it's like, but again, I guess that kind of makes sense because, Doppio, of course, he's going to be wearing more civilian clothing, whereas this is probably more, I mean, yeah, he's clearly like, I guess this is what the boss considers to be, business attire.
Right.
So it's like, it's like, of course he's going to be wearing more, like, something a little bit more formal, whereas Doppio, which we'll see, I don't know how many episodes from now, we still got a ways to go before we meet him.
Yeah.
Whereas Doppio's going to be in the more casual civilian clothing. And, we still got a long way to go before before Diavolo even shows up.
Yeah, really.
We got a long-ass ways to go from there. But yeah, that was actually something I caught on. Was like, it's like, again, I'm glad they kept him in shadow, but it's like, oh, okay, because, if you just look at his hair, it's like, yeah, that tells you that, yeah, this is Doppio's body out right now, but Diavolo is clearly the one in control, which makes sense, honestly, because, I mean, we see this even throughout the manga. Like, because if you remember, Ryan, at least in the manga, the surefire way of telling who is in control, even if the body doesn't change, is to look at the eyes.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. Diavolo had different designed eyes compared to Doppio. Doppio had regular eyes, but Diavolo's was different. So even if it was Doppio's body hanging out, just take a look at the eyes, and that will tell you who is in control. Is it Doppio or is it Diavolo? So I'm not in the least bit surprised to see that, of course, the body will be Doppio, but the one in control is Diavolo. Speaking of which, I'm actually looking at it right now because, as soon as I started talking, I had to fast forward. So if you actually look at their eyes, now granted, I know it's also a very far away shot, so perhaps they'll bring this an attention to detail later on. But, if you look at the shot, like after, right when, right when he's punching Bruno through the chest, and you see like this like up close shot of the boss's like shadowed face and King Crimson, the eyes look empty. Like there's no pupil or anything. It's just a blank iris. So it's like, that's where it's like, Again, I'm sure they'll pay that attention to detail later on, because it's like, again, like I said, Doppio's eyes are very normal, whereas like the eyes like what you see what King Crimson has, that's closer to what Diavolo has.
Yeah, okay, you know what? It's like, okay, like earlier I actually went back and fast forward a bit myself just to look at the non-wild hairstyle that the boss had, while he was carrying Trish and such. Now it's like, yeah, I too am looking at the exact same moment where we get a good shot of King Crimson along with Diavolo's eyes. It's like, yeah, no, I can see it too. It's like, yeah, his eyes look a little bit different compared to normal.
Right. So it's like, again, I think that's probably going to be an attention to detail we'll see later on, like once Doppio is formally introduced, and they've got to do something that, shows who is in control without actually doing like when Diavolo's formally introduced and we see, that awesome shot in the manga where like from behind he walks behind the pillar while he's taking his shirt off, and then as soon as he steps out, the hair is long, his body is different, and it's like that's such a great reveal for a villain himself. So it's like, without having to like take away from that, it's like, yeah, how else would you be able to differentiate between the two personalities? And the way the manga did it was through the eyes.
Right.
Alrighty, so, okay, I'm trying to think. So pretty much next week. So next week, we will be continuing off with this encounter with Bruno versus King Crimson and all the shenanigans from here. And I'm betting, anyway, that, the way the episode is going to end next week, it's going to end with the big moment where, Bruno and all of them, they all decide to betray the boss. Except for Fugo, because Fugo sucks.
Yeah, because Fugo's a little bitch.
Yeah, I was like, okay, I was like, yeah, technically Fugo doesn't suck, but, I do like Fugo, but still, it's like, yeah, I feel sorry for the Fugo fans out there. It's like, you only get one more episode with him and then he's gone. Unless David Productions got more plans for him.
Yeah, like, say, Purple Haze Feedback Animated? OVA, possibly?
It's like, oh, that's wishful thinking.
Oh, but yeah, honestly, I feel that's how they're gonna end next week's episode as well. Like, yeah, we'll see the remainder of Bruno versus King Crimson or whatever. He gets out of there or whatever, and then it's like, yeah, exactly. That's when the majority of the Bucciolati gang, decide to go ahead and betray the boss, except for Fugo for whatever stupid fucking reason.
Right.
Question is, like, kind of like how they ended this episode. Will they, will they play freaking you for the occasion, or will they just go ahead and be like, okay, this is still a bit of a too serious moment. Let's just cut that shit out.
I have no idea, but suffice to say, like, yeah, tonight's episode and next week, yeah, this is the turning point in the story. So this is no longer about, yeah, okay, we're, stand battle of the week, and we have to protect Trish, pretty much after next week. Yeah, it becomes a completely different story.
Yeah,
so it's like, it's like, again, it's like Diamond is Unbreakable. It's like the first half of the series is, stand battle of the week, and then as soon as the villain comes in, the story changes completely. And that's exactly what's happening here.
Yep. At this point, yeah, it's like after next week's episode, then we're gonna go on to the second arc.
Yeah. Yeah, that's when the second half will kick off, and that's when things get really interesting.
Oh, yes.
Okay. But, so that being said, word has gotten out that not, after next week, we are getting another recap episode. And apparently, this recap episode is going to focus solely around the battles against La Squadra. Why are we getting another recap?
Yeah, I know, right?
Okay. Again, this is the first JoJo anime I'm watching simultaneously. So it's like, Ryan, did they do this in the previous parts? Like, because you started with you started with Stardust Crusaders, right?
Yeah.
So did they do that? Like, did they just throw recap episodes randomly in the middle of these seasons? Or is this something wholly unique to Part 5?
Well, the way they're handling the recaps for Part 5, this is something unique compared to parts like, say, like Part 3 or Part 4. Like, especially Part 3. Because it's like, there have been numerous occasions where it's like, Part 3 does, like, this fair share of recaps, but they don't dedicate, like, entire episodes to nothing but recap. They basically do it like an episode you see, like, in any other TV show. It's like, they do, like, a very brief recap of what happened during the last episode before officially, like, going to, like, the opening or, like, the events of the next episode. And that's pretty much it. They did no recaps, like how Part 5 has been handling these episode recaps or whatever.
Again, this is just so fucking weird, because it's like, I initially thought the first recap was kind of odd, because if you remember, they did that recap, like, right after the fight with Aluzo. So, because it's like, so I was like, okay, that was weird, but, we initially wrote that off, like, okay, you could argue it's the start of a new year, so maybe that justifies it, but, okay, whatever. But it's like, we got a recap randomly there, and now we're getting a recap now. Now, to be fair, if they didn't do the first recap and just decided we're doing a recap here, I think I'd be far more forgiving. So it's like, okay, guys, we got to remember everything that's happened from the beginning up until now, because, yeah, the story is going to change. So, yeah, let's have that little reminder. But I think just the fact that we already had a recap and we're getting another one. It's like, why are we getting recaps all of a sudden? I mean, it's like, I don't know, like, is this just because, like, they want more time to, like, work on later episodes or something? Like, I don't want to say filler, because Lord knows JoJo does not need fucking filler arcs. But it's like, at the same time, it's like, you do have 2 light novels that can have some animation time put in if you really need some time. It's like... Yeah,
really.
It's like, yeah, technically Purple Haze Feedback takes place after the story, but there actually is another light novel called, I think it's called Golden Heart, Golden Ring, that actually takes place around this time. Like, pretty much, like, right at the halfway point is when it takes place. I've not read it. I know very little about it, and that's mostly, I think, because I have not been able to find a fan translation for it, so I've not read it in any capacity, as opposed to Purple Haze Feedback, where there is a translation out there. So that's where it's like, you technically have material you can work with, but again, that's if that's the reason why we're getting recaps. I have no idea. It just seems so weird that it's like, now all of a sudden it's like, it's 2019 and we've got 2 recaps and we're only 20 episodes in. In the grand scheme of things, that's not a lot of episodes. So why are we getting 2 recaps out of 20 episodes? That just seems so weird to me.
I have no idea. I am just as confused about this whole thing as you are.
Yeah. But, so suffice it to say, it's like, so yeah, Golden Gun Geekout next week, and then we'll have and then it's going to be another 2 weeks before we end up going back. And I would assume that it's going to be exactly like the previous recap, where all they're doing is literally recapping the events. There's not going to be anything new or anything added to it. I mean, I'm still gonna take a look at it regardless. But I mean, it's like if I see that it's like, oh, it's just a recap, then it's like, okay, it's nothing worth commentating on.
Right.
But yeah, I'm just going to assume that it's pretty much going to be exactly how it was last time. So just bear that in mind, guys. Golden Wind Geek Out next week, and then we'll be coming back 2 weeks later when we actually get back to the story proper.
Yeah, when we start the second half of Golden Wind.
Yeah. So that being said, I think what? Okay, so I'm sure some of you have noticed we started posting the manga reading. I uploaded volume 1 at the beginning of this month. So this is if you remember, guys. I know I mentioned this on Twitter, but for those of you who don't follow on Twitter, the manga reading series. This is going to be released monthly, and my aim is to get that at the beginning of each month. So initially, I was going to do So come Friday will be when I will upload Ryan and I reading through volume 2. But considering what's going on, I'm thinking, I might actually save that for March 8th, because that's going to be the week of the recap. So I'll be like, let's just focus next week on just watching the Golden Wind Geek Out, working on that. And then while we're on that 1 week hiatus, that's when you can probably expect, that's when I'll probably upload volume 2. So that way, you'll still get your consistent JoJo content from us.
Okay, yeah, there we go. That makes sense.
Alrighty, so I guess with that said, Ryan, is there anything else that you want to add? Like anything that we missed?
Well, actually, thinking about it now, it's like I'm trying to recall. Like, didn't you ask me before we started recording, going back to the whole backstory or whatever? It's like, weren't you gonna ask me whose backstory do we think stood out the most compared to?
Oh shit, I did. Okay, so yeah, let's just throw this in real quick. Okay.
Okay.
So now that we have everybody's backstories, we've got them all animated, they've all had some embellishments to it. Fugo got a backstory. So as far as how they've been presented in the anime, whose backstory did you end up enjoying the most? So did you enjoy Giorno, Abacchio, Narancia, Mista, Fugo, or Bruno's backstory the most? At least for how it was presented in the anime.
Oh man, it's okay, don't get me wrong, I love how they handled Fugo's backstory, if only because we never really got a definitive backstory with the guy in the manga, and this was the first we've ever seen it, even if it's only for just the anime adaptation. That was great. So it's I mean, I was thinking, oh man, oh yeah, Abacchio's is definitely up there, but it's man, it's I am torn between Fugo's backstory and Mista's backstory.
Really?
Yeah, it's and no, I am not just saying that because Mista is my spirit animal in this freaking show. No.
Yeah, because he can't be your waifu.
oh god, no.
I know. It's Ryan does not swing that way. So instead Mista is his spirit animal.
Exactly, yeah. But it's it's I don't know. It's I feel the way that they handled Mista's backstory, it's I don't know. For me, it seems like the most heartwarming. For some reason, I don't know. It could very well be the ending or whatnot, but it's on one hand, it's yeah, Mista's backstory, it felt like the most heartwarming compared to the others, and on the other hand, it's oh man, I don't know. I think it was just okay, granted we had a huge gap between the first half and the second half of Mrs. backstory, but it's I don't know. I think the way that they presented Mrs. backstory, like, as a whole, for some reason, it feels like it stood out more compared to, say, Fugo's for some reason.
Okay.
But that's just me. It's like, what would you think would be like the better backstory amongst Passione?
Honestly, I am torn between Bruno and Abacchio. And Bruno, I totally speak for bias here. So it's like, just referred to earlier in the Geek Out. But I also have to say, I really, really liked how Abacchio's backstory was presented.
Oh, yeah.
Because in all honesty, like, don't get me wrong, I do feel sorry for everybody, that was, with all the bad shit that happened to them. But I don't know, for some reason, Abacchio's was just the one backstory, like, I really, really felt bad for this guy. I mean, like, my heart was breaking when we were watching Abacchio's backstory.
Yeah,
I mean, it was really, really gut-wrenching to watch. It was like, it's very understandable. Hell, you could even argue it might even be relatable, given our fucking political climate now. But, but it's just, I think the way that they showed, like, Abacchio struggling with the hypocrisies that came with being a police officer and, how he ultimately ended up falling into that corruption and, pretty much what ended up happening as a result of that bad decision. It was just like, I genuinely felt sorry for him. It was like, like I said, don't get me wrong, I feel sorry for the rest of the guys. They all had bad shit, happen to them. But I don't know, it was just, Abacchio was one where, I mean, it's like, I was feeling really hurt with Abacchio's backstory. Like, when you're even seeing, like, he's in the hallway, just getting drunk before Bruno finds him, it's like, oh, poor baby. It's like, it's like you feel so bad for him. And, and that is the weirdest thing for me, because honestly, if I could be perfectly frank here, when I initially read the manga, as far as, Bruno's gang, Abacchio was probably the character I cared for the least. And that's not to say he's a bad character, but he is a good character. But between him and Narancia and Mista and Giorno and especially Bruno, like, in comparison to the rest of the gang, I was just like, yeah, he's a good character, but he's just not as interesting. And it's like, that was how I initially felt in the manga. This has got to say something to David Production, because David Production, you've actually managed to make me care about Abacchio. I have actually started to like Abacchio way more now after seeing how they've chosen to handle him in the anime adaptation. So it's like, I don't know, for me that's a big thing for me personally. So it's like, you did a good job animating the backstory, and you actually managed to make me give a shit about a character that I just initially thought was eh.
Okay, all right, you know what? God damn it, you convinced me. Okay, Fugo, back off. Abacchio, get in here. Like seriously, you bring all this stuff, like, no joke, you bring all this stuff up, and no, I do remember, like, all that was going on when we were initially watching that. It's like, okay, Mista's backstory, it's like, yeah, it had a heartwarming ending to it. It was great in its own way. But it's like, God, no, Danny, no, you are absolutely right. Abacchio's backstory was literally the most heart-wrenching. Not just because of what happened throughout the backstory in general, but the way David Productions, like, handled animating the whole damn thing, like, in general. Like, freaking, like, when Abacchio lost his best friend, and it's like, we hear Abacchio, like, literally, like, I don't recall, like, throughout the entire time, we actually hear, like, like full-blown, like, emotional, like, distress from the guy. But then Abacchio loses his best friend because of a mistake he made, and then he just screams and cries in agony because of what happened. That was literally, it's like, I kid you not, it's like, it was almost up there as, like, oh man, I remembered it, because it almost gave me some Joseph vibes, you know, when freaking Joseph and Lisa found Caesar's dead place right under that freaking rock in the shape of a cross with blood under it, and they both broke down. It almost, like, Abakio's reaction to the loss of his best friend, it was so close to being up there as one of the most heart-wrenching moments, you know.
Yes. Oh God, yes.
It's like granted Abakio's backstory, you know, didn't make me cry my eyes out, you know, compared to Caesar's death in part 2 and Lisa and Joseph breaking down, but it's like, it was up there. I kid you not. Abakio's backstory at that moment, it was up there.
Yeah, this is why last week when we were talking about last week's episode, you know, I had mentioned that, you know, prior to that episode, I would say my favorite episode was the episode where we see Abakio going up against Soft Machine, and you know, a big reason for that is because that's how Abakio's backstory was presented in that episode. And then we see Abakio in action immediately afterwards. It was like, it's such a great handled episode.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
All right, so yeah, audience, feel free to chime in, because I'm curious, what did you guys have to think? Like, you know, whose backstories did you end up enjoying as far as how they were presented in the anime?
Or better yet, tell us what are your thoughts on which JoJo villain had the best enemy stand reveal.
Yes, yeah, the World versus Killer Queen versus King Crimson, you know. Which one did you guys like the most?
Pick your poison.
Yeah, pretty much. Alrighty, so with that said, join us next week for episode 21. It's like, my God, you left us on one hell of a cliffhanger, and oh God, it's just gonna get more crazy from here.
I still can't believe you freaking called that cliffhanger, like, seriously.
Alrighty, but with that said, join us next week, guys, for episode 21.
Alright, see you guys then.